Great. Welcome to the History of LA Ska one-on-one sessions. I'm Junor Francis, and this series celebrates Ska, rocksteady, and vintage reggae scenes in Southern California and beyond through insightful conversations with legends and modern-day players, including those behind the scenes. This is the 28th, that's 28 one-on-one sessions, and our 13th in this new podcast and YouTube channel format. Thanks to everyone for their support. Our guest tonight is veteran Los Angeles-based trumpeter Eitan Avineri. Hope I said it correctly. He'll correct me in a moment. Eitan is a leader and mastermind behind Western Standard Time Ska Orchestra, who have just released their album Tombstone. Congratulations. And if I'm not mistaken, my memory serves me correctly, this is their 4th album release. Eitan, welcome.
Thank you very much for having me.
Listen, did I slaughter your last name, sir?
It was perfect. Yeah, thank you.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Yeah.
Once again, congratulations on the release of is that your 4th album?
It's actually our 3rd LP, but we put out a fair amount of 45s. So we have Volume 1, Volume 2, sort of the Skylights tribute versions, and this is our first that's all our own music. So.
Mm-hmm. Well, so we're right into the album discussion.
Right.
So
well, we're already working on the 4th one. So yes, you preempted it.
And tell us the title of it again.
Tombstone.
Tombstone, right.
Yes.
And there was a massive release party, one of the best concerts I've gone to in recent years. And I'm not sure if it's because of the pandemic why it came off like that, but boy, I was moved with compassion, man. I guess
the feeling,
everything was superb.
Yeah, the feeling was different for sure. A lot more sort of like that thankful, warm family vibe that was a really, really nice feeling. Yeah.
And has been missing now since the pandemic or way before.
Yeah.
Right.
I think people took it for granted maybe, and now they're that much more thankful when they do have, that live experience.
And were you satisfied with the turnout?
Oh yeah, it was great. It was almost sold out, and they changed it last minute where they only allowed people that were vaccinated. There were no more of the showing negative COVID tests. So there were. I think at this point, there are so many reasons not to go out that I think everybody's numbers are lower than normal for the most part. But I was super happy. I think it was a really good turnout. I talked to some people that flew out from Northern California and Arizona, and just people drove hours and hours to make it, and it meant a lot. So yeah.
And I'm quite sure they all had a wonderful time.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. The set was quite a long one, so everyone got their money's worth. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we had to get it all out of our system. It was a very cathartic thing. We were missing that, and we didn't want our fans to sort of not get their money's worth. So.
And you didn't charge a farmer's ransom for the entrance fee, considering how many people were in the band.
No, and I think that's one of the really great parts of our history is that the majority of our shows have actually been free shows. Free outdoor concerts that are all ages. So I think a lot of, the fact that really anybody, no matter what their age or their sort of financial situation is, we're not that kind of band where you have to spend $50 to see us. And, people have to wonder whether they can pay for their food for the month versus buy the ticket. It's kind of an easy decision. $20 and you get to see, hours and hours of great music.
Right. And how is the album sale going so far?
Oh, it's great. We actually, vinyl right now is taking so long, and we really appreciate all the fans.
Sense, to produce or to make?
To press, yeah, to press.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think the recording actually was pretty quick, but the pressing takes, it used to take, 4 to 6 weeks. It's now taking 4 to 6 plus months, even longer than that sometimes.
May I ask why? For my own information.
Well, from my understanding, it's primarily that there aren't that many places that make them. So there's kind of a limited number of places that actually make and have these machines, and also vinyl in general. But I think now that sort of vinyl has become this really sought after, this is really the only sort of viable physical, product that people can sell, that all these big acts, like, big pop stars, they're pressing 5, 10, 20,000 pieces of vinyl. Whereas, with us, it's, 500 or 1,000 is small potatoes. So it's kind of I think a supply and demand thing. And those pressing plants are so overwhelmed with large orders from, larger bands that are asking for a lot.
And how many did you press?
We don't.
This is your first run, right?
Yeah, we don't actually press all that much. We pressed 500. All of our albums, we've pressed 500.
Why is that so?
It's such a niche market, I think, and we all do it. We put it out ourselves. The first album, we did it through a small label in the Pacific Northwest, who they don't necessarily have a huge name. They just, it was sort of friends of the band, and it was sort of like scratch our back, we'll scratch yours kind of a thing. So we haven't really had that backing of a large label or big distributors or anything. So it's all been from our websites and our shows, and we don't play that many shows. So it's the people that do have the vinyl, I think, feel really kind of special about that there are only a handful of people that actually hold these pieces of vinyl. So
yes, interesting. And I know personally, but I'm asking for the benefit of our producer Eric and the viewing audience, who were the guest musicians and vocalists who appeared on the album and also at the concert.
Yes. So the band we had, not that he was a guest, but sort of Brian Dixon was a formative, a big part of the formation of the band and a big part of the history of the band, and was the main producer of the first couple of albums with me and Brian Wallace. He was a big part of the band, but he's since actually moved and started a family and started a whole new life that's not necessarily music related. So he hasn't been playing as many of our shows. He played a few here and there. We played the Supernova Ska Festival, and he flew out for that one. So we do some shows here and there with him. So he was on the album, which is really made me really happy that we were able to get him in the studio up there and record the rhythm guitar for most of the tracks. And then we have Chris Murray on vocals, and actually Chris Murray wrote that song. So the song that's on there is actually his song that he recorded quite a while ago. And when we asked him a few years ago which songs he would kind of see performing with the band, that was one of the ones he said, it's kind of a rare one that not a lot of people know, but I really think it would work well with the band. And we played it live pre-pandemic. And it was a big hit. We loved it. The fans loved it. So I thought it would be a perfect addition to the album, because the whole idea was to have music that the band or people, like, they're not necessarily covers of people that we don't necessarily know personally. So it was, I wrote most of the songs, and then Chris had that one that he wrote. And then we also had Jesse Wagner from the Agrolites co-write with me. So I wrote the music, and he wrote the vocal line and the lyrics. So that's a kind of a 50-50 with me and Jesse, and that was really fun to collaborate with him and see what he can do. And when I first wrote the music side of it, I had no idea even what it would be called, what the words were going to be, what the melody line would be. And when he gave me that first one where he kind of like sang it into his phone, it was like, oh, this is going to be incredible. He sounded just like that old crooner Sinatra vibe, which is exactly what I think fits really well with this band. So I was super happy with that. And then kind of a smaller one solo on the album actually has Luis Bonilla, who's originally actually from Los Angeles, but moved to New York a long time ago and did a lot of touring and recording with the Skatalites. So he, I knew of him and never really met him or played with him, but he was a person that I kind of wanted to pull into the band. He's now a professor of jazz in Europe, I think in Austria or something. And I emailed him, and he responded, and I got him on there. So that was exciting to have somebody that was affiliated with the Skylights in in the recording process. It was really exciting. So.
Mm-hmm. And where can the album be obtained? Someone who wants to get a copy.
Well, one of our shows. We don't play a lot of shows, but we are booking shows. We're going to be playing at Morro Bay next month. We're going to also announce a show on Thursday. We're going to announce, but I can tell you guys now that we're going to be playing back up in San Jose for a show up at the Ritz. So we'll be playing that. And we're working on some other shows in 2022. But right now, the vast majority of the people that are ordering our album are ordering from our website.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Are you getting orders from India, Pakistan, Jamaica? Just showing us some names.
It's exciting, and actually, I'm working on some distribution, sort of like DIY distribution. So I have a couple people in Mexico City that are selling it or going to sell it. Those packages already went out. I have Malaysia, Korea, Japan. I have Spain and Germany, and then also the Netherlands. So that we have some distribution happening, which is cool.
Mm-hmm.
And direct orders, before we kind of talked about the distribution to our fans, we've sold to Italy and Spain, France. We've sold to Japan, Mexico, South America, in South America, Canada, all over the place. So it's kind of fun to see, that we had an order in Australia, which was cool, recently. So it's nice. I'm filling out all those customs forms myself to send all those out.
But Australia is big on Ska. A stranger call.
They are, but this particular person that ordered it is actually on the western coast, which doesn't see almost any music. So it's he's kind of in the sticks over there. He's going to be playing our record, in the middle of nowhere.
I'd be remiss not to ask about the LA-based fans. How are they responding?
To the album?
Yeah, to the purchase, right?
They love it. Yeah, I think a lot of people are really excited with, hearing our own music, because I think we've been known. Some people have called us, I don't agree with it, but people consider us sort of a cover band, which I don't really totally agree with. I can elaborate if you want me to, but I don't think of us as a cover band. But I think it feels really good, especially when we were playing it live, where we saw the response right there and then. With people dancing and creating that kind of trad ska pit in the middle where everybody's circling around. It's a slower version of that punk ska thing where everybody's skanking in the middle, and all the cheering and all. It seemed like the response was really, really good there's a different feeling when you're playing your own compositions. So I think the response has been really good.
Interestingly, you said not a cover band, because I'm getting ready to start a cover band.
Oh yeah, nice.
And we'll be playing Dan Drummond and Roland Alfonso, Doreen Schaefer, as they were played back then, without any compromising. I'm just kidding. What is a dream?
Nice. Well, just this was a dream, and I made it happen. So you got to just make it happen.
Right. So let's talk about get sort of personal now. Where were you born and raised?
I was born in Israel, southern Israel.
Oh, okay.
So we moved when I was 7. From there, I was born in the desert. That's why that Bedouin ska and some of the stuff Naftuli, some of these songs that we've been releasing the last couple of years that are more written personally by myself, have that sort of Middle Eastern vibe to it. Is because that's sort of the sound that I grew up with. So that is a big influence on the music that I like. Like when we play Frankenstein ska, those kind of Middle Eastern sounding melodies and chord changes speak to me in a different way. So I was born, not necessarily raised, because up to 7 I was there, and then moved to Southern California with my family.
But you do have memory of hearing those
Oh,
sound
absolutely.
instruments.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that was all around us, especially in the South, where there were a lot of Jewish families, but also a lot of Arab families, and the that music was heard, on the streets and concerts all the time. It wasn't considered, uh, you know, out of the ordinary or exotic. It was just that was the sound.
Which was going to be my next question now, your earliest musical influences.
Musical influences. Well,
Outside of what you
honestly,
heard home.
back when I was in middle school, um, there was I
That
think it
would
was
be here in the States since you
in the States.
you
Yeah,
left
I
us.
mean, when I was really young, I mainly listened to the music that my mom and dad really liked, and the majority of that was actually soul and funk and jazz,
American soul.
right from the United States. Because my mom is actually American. She was
Mhm.
born in Chicago,
Oh, okay.
and my father was born in Romania, and they met in Israel. So they moved. He moved in the 40s, and she moved after World War II, and then she moved in the 60s and met him
Mm,
there, and that's where they had their built their family.
right.
So we were listening to mainly her records, my mom's records. So Aretha Franklin, all that old American music, popular music. The Beatles also, we listened to some Beatles too. But I remember, Aretha was a big part of what I listened to as a young boy. Once we moved to America, that's when I started getting exposed. There was a radio station, I think it was 88.3 or 88.7, that played South African music, and I just kind of stumbled upon it when I was turning the dials, and I heard some Soweto South African music, and I thought, this is really incredible. It's totally different than what I'm hearing. I'm hearing like the Thompson Twins and all this 1980s kind of pop music, Hall and Oates and stuff like that. And then I hear this stuff with all this percussion and beautiful guitar melodies and just so much feeling and soul behind it. And I thought, this is incredible. And I think that was sort of that beginning of being able to kind of take in reggae and all what that came with. So a couple of years after that, that's when I first started listening to reggae, and I got the Uprising album on tape from Bob Marley, and then also King Yellowman from Yellowman. So I played those forever and ever and ever, and then started listening to UB40, some of the earlier albums. So I got really, really into reggae, and I actually went to Reggae Sunsplash when I was in like 7th grade, I think, where our friend's mom all drove us to the Greek theater, and we watched Steel Pulse and all these amazing reggae acts live with horns. And at that time I was already playing trumpet, so I thought, wow, horns with reggae, and I thought, this is incredible. So I think that kind of got me going to listen to Jamaican music. So
interesting enough. And where were you living at the time?
in the South Bay near Torrance. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So they drove you all the way to Reggae Sunsplash. Was that your request, or she just wanted to take you?
No, we really wanted to, all of us. My friends, Chris and Steve Aguilar, and then also my brother was also into reggae. We all kind of got exposed to it at the same time. And actually, it was my cousin Lisa who ended up buying us those tapes because she loved reggae, and so it was sort of like this family thing. So yeah.
For Ska, when
Yep.
did Ska entered your life, and about what time, and what were you doing?
Yeah. So
Got exposed to Ska.
right.
Because
So
in a sense, it's distinctively different from Steel Pulse and Bob Marley and
oh, absolutely. Except for the Bob Marley, when I feel like ska was meant to come to me because it came from a few different directions. It was meant to be. So I couldn't get away from it. It was coming to me from different directions. So I loved African music, period.
Mhm.
And when I when I listened to reggae, I really loved it. So I was reggae first for me. I didn't know the history behind anything yet.
Mhm.
And I was playing in a ska band that my brother formed, and it was more third wave. And I liked it. I liked it enough. And I thought, oh, this is kind of cool. I get to play my trumpet, and people seem to really like it, and it's fun. And then a friend of mine who also really, really got into reggae, he kept showing me all these different artists, like the Gladiators and all these different artists, Culture and everybody. And I thought, okay, he's a good resource to listen to good music. He was kind of an addict of music, and he ended up for Christmas one year getting the Bob Marley. There was like a Bob Marley big collection. It was like a massive collection. Probably some people remember it, but it had Bob Marley from all different. They had like small studio stuff, acoustic stuff. They had early Bob Marley when he was playing with the Scotalites, all the older stuff, and then the more recent stuff that he did in the late '70s, and so I kind of got exposed to it all.
Songs of Freedom box set.
Right, exactly. That's what it was. So when I heard that older stuff, I thought, is that even really him? And then I started looking into it a little bit more because I was like, that doesn't sound like the same music. But then I started reading up on it a little bit more. So I knew about the music, but I felt like it was this sort of like this faraway thing that I really just didn't know anyone else that really wanted to play that kind of music. And what was interesting was throughout that whole time, the LA scene was blowing up. This was in the late '80s, early '90s, exactly when the scene was just like rumbling.
Yes, indeed.
But I was too young. I wasn't driving yet, and I had no idea what was happening over there. So fast forward, I'm in college, and I started playing, with different jazz bands. I was playing in at the university at UC Irvine, and I was playing my trumpet a lot, and I was playing with different bands, all different styles of music. I formed even like a ska band with Chris Stoffen, who actually ended up being in the Allentons with me. So we went to school at UC Irvine, and this is sort of like Orange County. So we were playing ska. So that was fun. But I didn't really feel like we could really do anything with it. It wasn't really a real band where we were performing. We didn't know how to book ourselves yet or anything. It was just kind of a fun rehearsal band. So one night at the Anthill Pub, which was like the on-campus, bar, but they had bands perform there, and I go in there with my girlfriend, and I start walking up the stairs, and I'm like, what is this music? And I walk up, and this band is playing, and they are just incredible. 2 trumpets. Full horn section, bari sax. They had a steel pan player. They had all this crazy stuff, beautiful singing. The drummer was like just killing. He was great. And I'm like, man, this band is amazing. And I was just like jaw dropping, like taking this all in. They played, I think, at least a couple sets. And then at the end of the night, I went up to one of the trumpet players, and I said, what is this music? And he said, this is traditional ska. This is Jamaican ska. I said, I want to play this music. Do you know if there are any bands that are kind of like you that would ever need a trumpet? Well, I'm sure from me saying the steel pan player, this was Mobtown.
I could not have known.
Yeah, so Mobtown played at the university, and it was totally by chance. It was not a ticketed thing. You just walk in. So I didn't know that this band was playing or what this band was. And I ended up talking to Robert. I mean, my girlfriend actually left. She was like, all right, I'm going to go back home. Because I was like completely like, though nothing else was important at that point. I was about 3-4 drinks in. So I was, feeling good and loving the music. And so I ended up talking with Robert for quite a while, and he took my number. This was pre-cell phones and all that stuff. And I said, please take my number if you know of any bands. He goes, I think that there might be a band that might be looking for something, but I don't know for sure. But I'll definitely forward them the number. I'm not going to promise anything. I said, but let's keep in contact. What's your phone? So we exchanged phone numbers. And I dug his playing, but I also thought he was a really cool guy. We're still friends. We still chat online and stuff. He moved to Arkansas, but great guy. So I got a phone call from Tommy from the Allentons 2 weeks later. Said, we're looking for a trumpet player. We'd like for you to come into a rehearsal and maybe audition so we can hear you. So I came in. They were rehearsing a couple times a week, so it was pretty easy. And at the time, I wasn't really doing a whole lot. I was really young. I was still in college, but I was just playing in my school band and studying. I didn't have a full-time job or anything like that. So I made that drive up from Orange County, and after the first song, it was pretty much after the first song, they said, do you want to join the band? So I said, yeah, I would love to. This is great. And this was also, exactly what I was looking for. I was looking for a musical outlet. I wanted to play my trumpet more, and I loved this music, and this was kind of a dream come true. I thought this is incredible. And they said, we have a big show on the Sunset Strip, in like a week and a half. So can you make it? I said, yes, definitely. So we ended up playing, and I think I'm almost positive we've done that a few times, but I think we were opening up for Hepcat. It was a really, really big show, and I was like so wowed because it was like wall to wall people, and the fans were so excited, and I thought, man, I want to be part of this scene, because this was sort of like the tail end was still super hopping, but this was part of that famed '90s trad ska scene. I think it was the Whiskey or something. I think it was the Whiskey, and it was packed. And I thought, man, I want to do this again. So yeah, I was super happy.
Yes. So what a baptism. So let's talk about the LA ska scene and what is unique about it.
Yeah.
Then and now.
The LA ska scene.
Yes, sir.
Versus different genres or different parts of the world.
More specifically, Los Angeles.
Los Angeles.
Then again, you have toured, right? Yeah, right.
Yeah, so I'm wondering if you mean like versus like Mexico City and Barcelona.
No, let's stick with LA.
Yeah, okay. So, well, one thing that I have noticed is the music is very, very true to its origins. Mm-hmm. So one of the things that we do and we have done very well is to mimic that style fluently. Mm-hmm. As if you closed your eyes and you didn't know who was playing, you wouldn't think that it's somebody that has never been to Jamaica mm-hmm. and looks a certain way. They think it sounds like the original yes. people. And the other thing is, I think of ourselves as sort of like a stacked football team or basketball team where we have a really, really deep bench, right? We don't necessarily have just like one person that can do this thing. We have a long, long list of incredible drummers. And really, in my mind, bass is definitely important. You have to know what you're doing in ska bass. You definitely need to know rhythm guitar, to get that feel. I think that's super important. And there are a good handful of people that can play that style, especially we're talking specifically LA. Brian Dixon being, I think, the first person that comes to my mind in terms of rhythm from the ska period all the way to skinhead reggae to, rocksteady, all those different genres, he nailed. But in my mind, I think the drums are the heart of it all. And we have such a long list. If I made the list, it would be very long, and I don't want to leave anybody out.
Drummers in Los Angeles who can.
In Los Angeles.
I did not know we have that many. I can count 5. You can go beyond 5?
I think so.
Oh, okay.
Well, I mean, we have Oliver Charles.
Oh, okay. Right. All right.
Ben Farrar.
Mhm.
We have Corey Horn.
Mhm.
We have Scott Abels. I mean, Scott Abels was definitely played in the scene. I know he's more Fresno, and actually, honestly, so is Brian Dixon. There's actually a Fresno thing with Checkmate and all those bands. That there was definitely something good in the water over there, and a lot of them got pulled down to LA because the scene was bigger, but like Los Hooligans and all that. But there are.
We have some good contemporary drummers as well too.
What's that?
We have some good contemporary drummers.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, Eric, and actually what's really nice with this band is I feel like I mean, I think of Corey as our drummer. He is our drummer. Mm-hmm. But the first album we had Gil Sharon and Corey on there, which I think was a nice mix because Gil also plays that style extremely well, super fluent in that style. But then on our next album, we had Scotty Abels, Corey, and Oliver Charles on there. And then this album, we have both Corey and then Fritz from the Steady 45s. Yeah, which I think he's a special drummer. I think all of them they listen to the music enough to where it's just
second nature.
Yeah, it's in their blood at this point. They're not thinking about it. It just happens. And I think
the early stages
kind of a mix.
It was very difficult. I think Corey and some of the other musicians got some lessons from Lloyd Scatterlight.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, a lot of them actually have nicknames that have to do with Lloyd because that's really he made that sound, and that's they're all mimicking or reinterpreting his style, and he also played differently later on in his career than he did earlier.
Give me a definition.
Just differently. He had a different swing, a different feel on the hi-hat with the early stuff versus the later stuff. So he was in his own way evolving, right? So what I saw when I saw them live, the times that I did, I saw them at least with the original people. I'd say it about 10 times. But so I got a certain version of him. But people that might have seen him earlier on, I know they took quite a long hiatus. But if you were at that first gig, or those handful of situations, or in the studio, you would see that he played differently. But I think a lot of us that listen to the music, we listen more to their older stuff and not necessarily as much to the newer albums. We listen to the foundation sounds. And that's what we're really trying to pull from and mimic. So
interesting.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the formation of Full Spectrum and Kingston Ska Collective. You actually were part of, and if I'm not mistaken, formed those bands.
Yes. Yeah, that was sort of me kind of dabbling. The Full Spectrum was first, and was sort of
on getting time for.
It was right after the end of my playing with the Allentons. So it's sort of as soon as I finished. What's that?
Year for posterity, so that
the year.
Someone remember. Oh yeah, that was exactly that.
It's such a long time ago. I don't think of it in specific dates.
But approximately.
I would say that it was probably around 99, 2000. Yeah, 2000 was when we recorded our first EP with Full Spectrum. And Full Spectrum was interesting because I had already forged those friendships with people in the scene, and people knew, my ability to play as well, as well or as badly as I play, I got my name out. People knew me as a trumpet player that could play.
Consistently brilliant. I mean, let's say you won't praise yourself, but I'll praise you.
Okay. Well, I made some good friendships, and people started asking me to play with them, but I really was interested in leading bands and forming something that I can call my own. Sort of being in control of my destiny, sort of, musically and professionally and all that stuff. And I had a certain mind at that time that I really wanted to explore the mix of ska and jazz. I really kind of liked the idea of sort of straddling those two worlds and seeing where that takes us. Mm-hmm. So we would do a lot of jazz covers out of the real book, but also write songs that had sort of a jazzy element to them. Chordally complicated and thicker harmonies and different things like that weren't necessarily as prevalent in ska. But I kind of like the idea of keeping the rhythm of ska, but having jazzier elements. Because I know that the Skatalites definitely had jazz elements in their playing, and that they did a lot of listening to that music, and that's where it really
refer to themselves as jazz musicians.
Yeah, so I think of the Skatalites. They were mainly, I would say maybe 70-80%, if we're going to talk numbers, ska, and then 20 to 30%, ish, jazz. Whereas I kind of wanted to see where that, push it a little bit more into like 50-50 maybe, 50 jazz, 50, so a little bit more jazz, but not completely jazz.
But by and large, the Skatalite musicians, they were trained jazz musicians who started playing ska when it evolved from early Jamaican R&B into ska.
Absolutely, yes.
Before and or about the time of independence.
Right, exactly. So it's not necessarily that it was something revolutionary, but it was just sort of this experimentation with a mix of things. So the ingredients were the same, but it was like maybe a little bit more of this ingredient and see how that would taste, kind of a thing. So I was kind of just experimenting with that idea. And it originally started with Corey on drums and Brian Dixon on guitar. And then also I had Robert in there. Robert played rhythm guitar, also or lead guitar, I should say. Lead guitar.
Brian so you had the core.
Yes, but it all came from the ska scene. And then I had a couple people horn-wise that were more jazz players that I didn't necessarily feel like was in the ska scene at that particular time. There are certain players like Kincaid, Smith. He definitely would be at that kind of jazz level, but he already played my instrument. So I thought, okay, and he was obviously plenty busy with Hepcat, so and I didn't know them personally at all. So, but I was looking for those musicians that could play jazz really, really well. So I kind of mixed it in a little bit with some jazz horn players, and then also with that traditional ska foundation rhythm section. So that's how that started.
And how was Full Spectrum received by ska fans?
Honestly, I think a lot of people were skeptical. I think between, if I really think about it, it was sort of like a half-baked idea. It wasn't necessarily, I feel like I got the recipe right with this band. And with Full Spectrum, it was sort of like I had to pay my dues and get my booze. So, some people dug it a lot. And I remember Cheeky's coming up to me at one of our shows, and he said, what you're doing is really important for the scene. Keep doing it, And that was really a nice thing because, I wasn't getting a whole lot of praise yet.
You could credit him, excellent LA bass player. Played on numerous bands.
Oh yeah, Cheeky's LaZoya. That was a cool conversation that we had, and it was kind of what I needed to hear because I felt like people just weren't digging it enough. And we were doing some more family shows, and we were selling albums and stuff, but it wasn't in the scene. The scene wasn't really super into it, because also we ended up Corey and Brian Dixon, right at that time, that 2000-ish time period, they were getting pulled hard by the Aggrolites. So, and they started touring all over the place, and they had absolutely zero time. And so the personnel changed. So Full Spectrum ended up being all musicians that weren't necessarily from the ska scene, and it suffered, I think. You know, the rhythm wasn't 100% there. I never really zeroed in on a good bass player that would really do a good job with the style. So just struggled from that standpoint, partially from just finding the right people, the personnel.
And from there, the formation of the Kingston Ska Collective a few years after, right?
Yes, and that was actually I can't remember that. I remember you and I and Eric met at some place, a coffee place or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I remember us having the conversation. I don't remember if the band had formed yet or you guys were the reason why it formed.
No, it was an idea that I had ever since I arrived here in California, that there should be a ska band to back artists when they came to town.
Right.
Right. And so, you know, Eric and I, we bounced the idea back and forth. And then he thought you would be the best person to contact to do that.
Yeah.
And some legends
I think
were coming into town. And
yeah. So
right. So that was where that idea came from.
Okay. So, because I remember there was also this idea that I wanted to recreate the Scotalites and do covers of their music because I love their music so much. And it kind of like tells a good story because Full Spectrum started off with, you know, mainly jazz stuff, and I was doing ska and all that. And that was my first sort of foray into the world of being a band leader. And then this Kingston Ska Collective was that next step before Western Standard Time started, where it was the same number of musicians. So it was essentially a true cover band. We were covering the Scotalites discography with the instrumentation of the Scotalites. So it was essentially like there was nothing really different about it in a creative way. It was just sort of, we were trying to do our best to play their music the way they played it. And
I'm trying to juggle my memory. I didn't know you had so many actors in the Kingston Ska Collective as you have now in Western Standard.
No, yeah. So sort of, I think of it as sort of like that chapter 2, and chapter 3 was Western Standard Time. So I think we had maybe 8, at the most 9 people in Kingston Ska Collective. So it was the same instrumentation as the Scotalites. Same, you know, we had our 2 tenors, and we had the trumpet and the trombone, lead guitar, you know, all that stuff, just like the Scotalites had. And we played some fun shows, but we didn't necessarily play tons of shows. We didn't do any touring or anything like that. We recorded an EP, and actually, it just didn't necessarily go as far as I would have hoped. But I think that also got me ready for the concept of Western Standard Time, I think.
No, it gets so fascinating, especially for you now. So you were part of backing band that backed up several Jamaican foundation, mothers and fathers. Share with us some of your experiences, and I will rattle off the names, and then we go over them one by one.
Sure.
A roll call: Eric Montemarris, Phyllis Dillon, Derek Morgan, Prince Buster, Rico, Owen Gray. So let's start with Montemarris. Any fond memories or sad memories working with him? You worked with Allentons in Long Beach back in 1999, just before the end of the millennium.
Right. We actually also backed him up again at the Dub Club more recently. I don't remember exactly which year that was. So there were a couple times that we worked with Eric Montemarris, and I just loved his music. I mean, I knew maybe a song or two. I think we covered Penny Reel or something like that.
One of his big hits, yeah.
Yeah. And I think also Hepcat played that one too. That was a big hit that I was familiar with. But one of the great parts of of working with him was listening to all of his music. There was not a bad track in any of it. And, you know, back then we spent, I'd say, a solid month rehearsing the music
Wow.
because we weren't writing anything down. It was about, memorizing the music. So we would rehearse twice a week for 4, 5, sometimes 6 weeks straight. And we would go to Commerce, East LA, to rehearse at our regular rehearsal place, which was our bass player's house, Lee's house. But I remember going all the way to like Tommy's house, which was like in the IE. So we did a lot of work getting ready for him, and it was a blast. I mean, I think he was great. We were, I think, even in the studio with him. We did a studio thing at Casey's studio at KUCI, I think. So we did a few things with him. So it made it really worth all the hard work that we
Yes.
did to get it ready. So
Mhm.
yeah.
The queen of rocksteady, Phyllis, with Kingston 10 at the Whiskey. That was 2001, I think, just shortly after 9/11.
Right.
Mistaken. Mhm.
Yeah, she was an incredible vocalist and a really, really sweet woman. Very, very thankful and welcoming and good conversationalist. And she wasn't one of those people that like wanted her own space. I think she really, really liked the fact that she had all these people that loved her music and loved her so much. I also loved working with Kingston 10. I thought they were an incredible band. It was really the beginning of my relationship with Corey, and playing with him and how much I loved working with him. Such an incredible musician. And yeah, it was just super fun. I think Robert also played guitar on that. I made some really Amador. I just remember those bands and those times really,
Mhm.
really.
David Morgan, so the king of ska. He's been here numerous times. I remember on one occasion you worked with him with the Rough and Tough All-Star, the Whiskey. So that was 2001 as well.
Right. And yeah, he's one of those artists that I work with different times and also in different, not eras, but, with years apart. So it wasn't like a back to back to back. And he's another one. There's a reason why these artists are still remembered, 50 years, 60 years later. Their music is timeless. Like, he had hit after hit after hit after hit. And he has kind of a higher voice. And at first I didn't, you see these headshots and you don't really know sort of what, and they're from, when he was practically a teenager. And then you see this grown man who's this towering giant. And at first I found him kind of intimidating, but then he has this sort of sweet quality about him. So, and he's very, very, I don't know, when we were in the studio, it's just very positive. And a lot of these artists, I think they're extremely thankful. I mean, they could be really hardened with the history and the lack of recognition and lack of financial, success from all of the music that they've created and this empire that they've essentially paved the way for, that they could be really hardened and negative. But I found them all extremely warm and just appreciative of these musicians that take the time to learn their music, that know the music as well as they do, and to, we take care of it feels like, when you have a pet, you want to leave it with somebody that really cares for that really, really take care of it as if it's their own.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like they have that sort of idea about musicians that really do their homework and play their music as well as they do.
Mm-hmm.
That they're just, it's a pleasure because they're so happy,
Mm-hmm.
that we've taken care of their music
Yes.
as well as we have.
Next is Prince Buster with the Agra Lights at the Sierra Nevada World Music Festival in 2013. But for the record, I think Derek Morgan had like 6 songs, the first artist, recording artists in any genre of music, because the radio stations in Jamaica used to play a lot of American records. He who pays the piper calls the shot.
Right.
Derek Morgan came, he had 6, he held, I think from number 1 to 6, which has never been done before or after. And nothing for all these American songs. Shortly after there was independence. And we saw a shift in focus to more Jamaican music and about the time of independence. Back then we only had 2 radio stations. So when you mentioned hits after hits, it was really Derek.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And Prince Buster just as spectacular. You guys backed him along with you were with the Agra Lights at Sierra Nevada World Music Festival.
Yeah, and I think recently in the last couple of years, somebody posted like the whole set. Somebody recorded, I think it was Bernie from Riverside Syndicate Records.
Right.
He was at that show, and I think he was in the back by the studio, or the front of house, and I think he recorded like the whole show. So we saw it was really fun, sort of reliving that set. It was.
What was it like working with Prince?
He was great. Totally, very professional. Again, the music was super fun. The band was super motivated to do a good job for him, and I think he appreciated that. I mean, between you and me, I felt like the billing or the promotion or whatever it was he didn't have a lot of people in front of him compared to the later sets, which was a little bit sad. I felt like we put in all this work. We traveled really far. He obviously traveled super far, and it would have been really nice because we played great. I think good energy, and the music was amazing. We did a great job, but you could tell he was a little miffed at like the turnout.
I think it was the fault of the promoter. They had another band on. The timing wasn't right. I don't remember the name of the band, but another band was on the other stage. When Prince was on that stage and people went to the other stage.
Yeah,
but
so I think he was a little bit.
Had appeared there was his second appearance. So a lot of people had seen him prior.
Oh, okay.
So those factors work against him and didn't work in his favor.
Yeah, because I know
and the timing was not right.
Yeah, I mean he's definitely legend status, and I think if that show happened in a large city, because a lot of those festivals are kind of in the sticks, where if they had it like in the heart of LA, that same show, the place would have been just busting at the seams, I think.
Yeah, no, but the first time when Prince Buster appeared there first, he was in conversation with the promoter, Warren. And he said, Prince Buster charged too much. And I said, Warren, I can convince you that Prince Buster is the only artist on planet Earth who people travel from all across the 52 states to see. And so Friday evening, they sold 1,000 tickets more than the previous year. That's the fact.
Yeah.
His first appearance. And people did travel from all over.
I'm sure.
Right.
I think
again,
when we talking
again wasn't right. The second appearance was too relatively close to his first appearance. So people opted to see the other band that was playing. And I don't remember exactly who. Right.
Yeah, so that kind of tainted it a little bit, but honestly, it was very memorable. This was a long time ago, and I still remember it very, very well. I remember the rehearsal beforehand, and I remember the set. Also playing with Tom. I played with Tom Cook for years and years and years. We've done so many, right? Yes, right. So many different things, including Western Standard Time. He's kind of my horn buddy. I mean, we did tons of shows together, and that was one of them. And he's a solid rock of a musician, and he's a really smart guy, and he knows the structure of songs super quick. I always relied on him to know when to come in because he knew every song backwards and forwards.
He's a multi-instrumentalist.
Oh, he is, and he's a brilliant.
When the keyboard player left the Debonaires, he started playing.
Right? Yeah. Yep. He can do it all.
Absolutely brilliant. So
he's also a great engineer too.
Right, that I didn't know. Right. So Rico, the trombone wizard, the giant, got trained by the great Dan Drummond. You also work with him
Hmm.
I think with Kingston Ska Collective in the city of Pomona, 2006.
Yeah, I did it with a slightly different band in Hollywood also. So I played with
Yeah,
him. I think it was like back to back nights, right? It was like the same weekend maybe.
yes.
Yeah. Um, yeah, incredible. And um,
He has
he
a good sense of appreciation for the brass. Doesn't matter who's.
oh yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
his appreciation is profound. It comes across.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Yeah. And I think Roger played keyboards for that. I think David Urquidi played in the Hollywood one, and
Mhm.
he's in. Yeah, there are a lot of, and Chris Murray was a part of it with the. I don't know. It was super fun working with him, but also it's really fun working with other musicians of like minds, where everybody just worshipped his music,
Mhm.
worshipped him, and we all did a really good job because we like I said earlier, we really care about this music. We care about the legacy. We want the artist to be happy, and also the fans. The fans at this point are just as important to please because all of them have such a fine-tuned ear for this style of music because they've been listening to this great high level of this style of music for years, that they know the difference if you're doing a good job or not, and they'll let you know.
You're
So,
not kidding. And last but definitely not least, we have Owen Gray, again, backed by backed by Kingston Ska Collective, also in 2006. That was a wonderful year for vintage Jamaican music
oh,
here.
absolutely.
You did work with Owen.
Yeah, I worked with Owen, and also I did the set with Dennis Al Capone too that night. I think I
Mhm.
sat in with one other one, but I just remember being so starstruck, and the venue was so incredible, and that was the first night that I met Gil Sharon, and I was just rubbing elbows with all these ska legends that I've never seen before, and I was just wowed by the whole thing. When I wasn't playing the sets, I was out in the crowd just enjoying it all. It was an incredible night, and we really appreciate you guys doing that. I know that you guys went far far and wide, and it was not easy to do,
Yeah,
and we really appreciate it, the fans and the
yeah.
musicians.
Those were the two shows at the Fonda.
Yes, that venue is incredible. That's the same venue we opened up for the Boston's when they
Mhm.
came in. That was a nice big show for us too.
Mhm. You mentioned Dennis Al Capone. Have I left out any legend who you have worked with?
I recorded on Everton Blender's album.
No, that's contemporary.
Yeah, and that was actually through the Agrolites. Um,
Okay.
but let me see. Oh, the Jamaicans. I worked with the Delirians. We did a show up in
Yeah.
San Francisco with them.
Right.
Yeah. So, and those are the more the legends. Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm. So we've basically covered all the legends you've worked with.
I think so. Yeah.
Mhm. Right. And what are some of your career highlights that you want to share with us?
Career highlights. With I think a lot of them were the shows that we did with all the legends. All the legends shows were definitely a highlight. Um, my first show with the Allentons was a big highlight. Seeing Hepcat live for the first time was definitely a highlight. Um, but from a personal standpoint, pretty much the last 10 years have been a highlight with the Western Standard Time project. It really breathed new life into my passion for the music and kind of feeling like I'm doing something that mattered and that people will remember and that is improving the world because as a musician you always want to think that you're making the world a better place by making music, but making people happier, giving people an outlet, when they're feeling sad, they pop on your music and they, it helps their mood and, it unites people. And so as a musician, you, especially musicians that play in bands and play out. That's, I think, a big part of our identity and our calling for why we do what we do is because we feel like we're making the world a better place.
Right.
So I feel like the last 10 years have really done that. You know, from the get-go, we got a lot of really good feedback, and our first show had, you know, thousands of people there, and everybody was there to check it out.
In Pasadena?
No, the first one was in Hollywood and Highland.
I was there.
Yes, a lot of people were there. That was the thing. I thought, you know, people that didn't have to be there all decided that was the place to be. And there were people that flew from New York. I heard people from Europe flew out for it. Canada.
Tijuana.
What's that?
People came from as far as Tijuana.
Yeah, Tijuana. And then also I know a person who ended up doing a write-up for us, came from Minneapolis. And they're just, you know, it was an incredible night. Yeah, it was.
I also think that this past, 2 Saturdays ago, in Pasadena was also a highlight. You know, audience response. You know, after, well, not the end of the pandemic, but for people who've been locked up, you know, in the home with kids and, you know,
and we also
rough time. They came out and boy, I saw the energy was breathtaking, beautiful.
Yeah,
for
no,
me, it was a highlight. And I've
sure.
seen numerous times.
For sure. There was something I can't necessarily explain, but the feel was different.
Yes.
It wasn't necessarily even the number of people.
I think we're the same wavelength. There's something that happened.
Yeah, a lot of people came up to me. I was at the merch booth, you know, like, because I was on the exit where people were leaving. So many people came up to me. People were tearing up. People were saying, we flew from this different place. Or there were people that also that said, we've never seen you before. This is incredible. You've got a new fan for life. Like, all these people were so communicative about their feelings. You know, where most people before you just be like, great show. But it was this sort of like, thank you so much for doing this. This is, you know, it was a different feeling.
Right. And what was the date again? I think, if I'm not mistaken, was November for remembrance, for posterity. That was.
Say one more time.
When was the show?
The
date.
The date. Oh, November 20th. Our album release was November 18th.
Right.
And it was November 20th was the Saturday.
Yes, a very memorable show. A night that defies the ordinary understanding. And speaking of understanding, I want to introduce now my good friend Eric Kohler is a producer.
Oh, hey, Eric.
He has some fun questions that he wants to run by you.
Absolutely.
Good to see you. I've been enjoying
walking down memory lane with all these wonderful legend shows of which I saw you play at each one of them over the years. And unfortunately, I missed the show at the Lodge Room. I was out of town. I heard nothing but amazing reports, saw some wonderful videos and photos. I was at the very first Hollywood and Highland show. We should give thanks to Jose Riso and K-Jazz, right, for that.
Right.
So there were a number of, because it was part of the jazz series, number of jazz fans that were there. Yep. And the first, and probably the only, ska band to play as part of that series. And yeah, it was a wonderful night. Really enjoyed that. But
yeah, they didn't know what to do with all the dancing. They had all these seats, but everybody was like kicking the seats over. And
yes, yeah. I remember it well. I also remember, and we might have reminisced about this once since, but for the sake of Junior and for our listeners and viewers, I specifically remember, and I vividly remember, Eitan, it was a Super Bowl Sunday. I was in Hollywood at Trader Joe's shopping. You call me and you say, Eric, I want your thoughts on this idea of this big band that I want to put together. And you referenced at least Joey and Corey, if others as well. And I said, Eitan, it's an amazing idea, but it's nearly impossible. How are you going to do this? You talked about the sheer quantity of players that you wanted. I said, I have no idea how you're going to do this, but good luck. I love the idea.
Yeah.
Want to support any way I can. And fast forward, that was I believe that was after Kingston Ska Collective, right? And
Yes.
so sometime in the late 2000s. But so obviously, kudos and big congratulations for everything that you've worked so hard. And I know that both Brian Dixon and Brian Wallace, were instrumental as well in the early years, and so many part of so many players from the scene, and I know it takes so much time and energy and finances, and you being a family man, there's a lot of challenges, but congratulations on everything.
Yeah, thank you.
With the band, and congratulations on the brand new release Tombstone as well.
Yes.
I'm loving it.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, just a few questions here. So was it a conscious decision, and you answered this a little bit earlier, but to transition from primarily a Skatalites tribute band, right? We won't use cover, but tribute band, to now focusing more on originals. So take us through that little kind of transition or journey.
Yeah, well, I felt like it was important when we first started forming the band that we would give all credit to the originators of the music. It made perfect sense. I felt like there wasn't really any other reason or any other scenario that would make sense to me to start the band was to be not necessarily give it lip service or sort of make it a mysterious aspect of the band. I wanted to be front and center that this is what we're doing. We're thanking and giving tribute to the originators of the style of music. So it was very explicit. I had my good friend Benny Goldman create 10 charts of not necessarily the songs that were necessarily my favorites, because some of my favorites were some of the more obscure ones, but I felt like sort of create that first album for the fans in terms of like the popular, most well-known songs to give tribute to them. So kind of like a Skatalites big band version of like Bob Marley's Legend album or something, something that would be accessible to a lot of people's ears. And with Volume 2, it was sort of like it started that process of going deeper into their discography and pulling from some of the lesser known titles. And then also we did some songs that weren't necessarily specifically Skatalites songs. So we were starting to already pull away, even though it's considered Volume 2 tribute to the Skatalites. There were some tracks in there that weren't necessarily Skatalites.
Right. They were maybe part of the Jamaican songbook, but they were not Skatalites.
Exactly. So I felt like it was considered a tribute to the Skatalites, but it was really a tribute to Jamaican ska as a whole, to all the artists.
Right.
And I think that's also an important part of the story that we wanted to tell. We didn't want to make it seem that the Skatalites were the one and only people that created something that was of worth, because there were a lot of great musicians and also people that worked with the Skatalites but weren't necessarily specifically members of the Skatalites, sort of derivatives of.
Right.
So that sort of got that idea already. This was a good 6 years ago, but that idea of, okay, we need to start, and also we had fans come up to us and people interview us that said, have you ever thought of writing your own music? Have you ever started? And that really gave me that impetus to like, okay, I need to do this. And I have music in me. I have written music before. I can do this. And so I just started writing. And a lot of it was just me sort of singing melodies into my phone, transcribing certain ideas, and just making our own voice, with the same format, but yeah.
Yeah, and I mean it's still extremely unique and obviously powerful, both on record and obviously live set. So it's working. It's working. Yeah. You had mentioned both Jesse Wagner and Chris Murray. over the years, both live and on your previous records, you've also had some amazing vocalists.
Oh yeah.
Talk about it and at least name them if you can.
Yeah, so the list is kind of long, but we our first show we had Gina. She sang for that first show, but we've had Queen P, we've had the Expanders, we've had Alex from Hepcat, Greg from Hepcat for quite a few years. We had Angelo Moore.
Fishbone.
Yeah, we had obviously Chris Murray, Jesse. I know I'm missing people.
Colin, right?
Yes, Colin has sung with us, both in the studio and live.
Right. Yep.
I feel like I'm missing people. I know that when we played up in Canada, we had I can't remember her name from the Kingpins.
How about Malik? Did Malik play with them?
Oh.
Malik
Yeah, Malik, yes. That one show that we did at the Dub Club at the Echoplex.
Right. Yep.
Yes, Malik sang. He sang at least a song or two. So that show was kind of a feature of vocalists. It was sort of the idea behind it all.
Yeah. No, amazing. Let's touch on touring because you have toured. You played Mexico City. You played over in Europe. Talk about some of those cities and countries.
Yeah, so we did our first big tour. We actually played in Mexico City, and the idea was to play 2 shows in Mexico City, fly back to LA, and then fly to Europe and do a couple weeks in Europe. So we ended up just doing 1 show in Mexico City. It was a big show with it was like they called it Nutty Ska Festival, something like that.
Yeah.
At a pretty large venue, I think like a 2,000 capacity place, and it was pretty darn full. I don't think it was sold out, but it was like 1,800 people.
Wow.
And that was incredible. I've never been treated like a star before. And I couldn't walk through that venue. I couldn't get through the venue. People were accosting me they wanted me to take pictures and sign the albums and this and that and go, I want to buy you a drink. And they started, it was amazing. And just how loud they are and how much they dance and sing along with you. Even though we're playing mainly instrumentals, they're singing all the melodies with you and they're hopping up and down. It's like a soccer stadium, So that was amazing. And then we flew back to LAX for a few hours and then had a connecting flight to Europe. And then we played a number of shows in Belgium. We played the Milky Way in in the Netherlands. We played a couple festivals in Germany, Switzerland, Spain, 3 shows in Spain. Barcelona was a definite highlight. Barcelona is kind of like probably the closest to Mexico City in that kind of energy.
Great town, yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and it was a big venue, and they loved it, and they were the same thing. It was like the singing out loud, almost. We're 20-piece orchestra with microphones and speakers, and these people are singing.
Yeah,
pretty much that same volume. We could hear them pretty well. So,
and when you were touring in Europe, did you supplement any of the musical spots with local musicians, or did you bring it?
Yeah, it was impossible. I don't want to get into the dollar amounts, but I lost a lot of money in Europe going there between flights and traveling and all that.
Your own personal money.
Oh yeah, all of this is my money. Yeah. So yeah, it's been an expensive but extremely fulfilling years with the band. But yeah, it's a total DIY thing, But back to what you were asking about, I wouldn't have been able to fly out 18 to 20 people. Right. It was impossible.
Yeah,
flights are $1,500 each, and yeah, that's not the kind of money we're talking about. But I made some really great contacts with some amazing musicians over there. The keyboard player and bass player that we were using were from Mr. T-Bone's
Oh,
trio,
sure. Yeah.
and they're actually expatriates from the United States, and so they were living in like Italy at the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so they toured with us, and they're actually both of those guys are back in New York. But yeah, so anyways, I had them, and I had some really great horn players. But for the most part, the core of the band was, I think, eight of us, I think, went out there. So it was a good chunk of us. So it wasn't like a complete cover band.
Yeah.
You know, there's some bands that call themselves whatever they call themselves, but it's just really the singer, and then they have the whole band out there.
Wow.
We were trying our best to give them Western Standard Time, not a cover band.
Yeah, yeah. You did what it took to keep the authenticity, right, and what the band was about without breaking the pocketbook even more.
Yeah, it's like Brian Dixon was there, Corey, Tom Cook, Brian Wallace, Greg, me. I mean, it was like
sure.
It was us.
Yeah. Are there plans to, since you've backed so many legends, I mean, is that in the cards in the future?
We've thought about the idea. Logistically, it's difficult, but my personal goal with this band is to play a venue like the Hollywood Bowl and have somebody like a Derek Morgan or somebody that's really decorated in the scene and do a big band version of their music, all their music, in front of a sea of people. I mean, the vast majority of this band, not me included, unfortunately, have played that venue. So it's not a far stretch, to go there. The band is the caliber of musicians that would play that kind of a venue. But I think it has to be, making whatever 15 arrangements of this person's music, whoever that would be, would be time consuming and also expensive. But it's not impossible.
No,
it definitely happen.
Brilliant idea. It reminds me of, I saw the DVD concert of John Holtz and Freddie McGregor, both backed by the London Philharmonic Orchestra. I don't know if you've ever seen that. There's probably some clips on it online, but brilliant and beautiful concert.
And that's another thing that I could see us doing. Obviously not in like a small club, but like a place like the Hollywood Bowl, where we would augment the group, where it would be the big band. And they've done things like that before, where they have a big band, but then they'll also have a full string orchestra behind them, or in front of them, I should say. And like Sting has done that before. And it translates musically very well, but also it sells tickets because it's like, ooh, that's different. I want to see that.
I saw Culture Club do that as well at the Hollywood Bowl, and you did something with No, it's great. So obviously, COVID the last year and a half has been challenging in many ways. I'm sure it threw a wrench in a lot of plans that you had, but looking in next year, I mean, broadly, what's on? You mentioned earlier a little bit about some shows coming up, but what does 2022 look like, you think, if you have a crystal ball for Western Standard Time?
Well, I think we'll do similar things to what we were doing pre-COVID, which is doing these kind of spot, not full tours. We can't really do 4 to 6 week or 8 week tours like some bands do, but continue to play in different markets and bring the music to, we're talking to Europe again, to go back there. We already have some offers there, which is exciting, but I think we would probably work with the music of our new album mainly. That's usually what people do when they go on tour. They're supporting an album. We would play, like we did at our album release, play a good chunk of the music from the album, including Chris Murray's tune and also Jesse's tune, and hopefully work with them. We're also, we've already talked to Jesse about possibly doing some stuff out of, overseas.
Nice.
And I think we're also, from a logistical standpoint, it's easy for us to work with the Agrolites because we're good friends, but also we have some personnel overlap, and we're also booked by the same agency, so they're just
over in Europe or here?
No, here.
Oh, okay, cool.
Here, yeah. So the combining of the two groups makes a lot of sense, and I think billing wise and logistically and everything, I think we would do well in a lot of different markets. So, but we're talking to Mexico, we're talking to Europe, talking to Canada.
Yeah,
it'd be really great to go down to South America. Brazil's would be a great spot. So Argentina also would be great. Japan. So we're looking at it, any and all possibilities.
Jesse can come out wearing his dapper suit, playing with you guys.
Exactly right.
Change into his more aggro.
Yeah, the all black or the spray paint or whatever.
I love it. He's a born crooner for sure.
He is, and he's very versatile. He can croon on one set and grit it on the other one.
I never forget the first time I saw the Agrolites and the spectacle that they are, and they continue to be, obviously, and still remain close with those guys. Let's take it personal as one of our last questions. You're a husband, father, obviously a musician, band leader, teacher as well, right?
Yeah.
You for a long time taught music. Touch on that.
Yeah, so I have been pretty much doing music as my career since I was a teenager, whether it be playing live or teaching privately or teaching group lessons. But for the last, now it's 20 years that I've been teaching public schools. So I've been either elementary, middle school, or high school band director. So, that's a big part of who I am as a musician, as a person, is as an educator.
Yeah.
So, and I remember doing also some in-school performances where we would, even full spectrum, we would go into some of the schools and perform for them and show them Nyabingi drumming and how that formed into, like kind of that masterclass kind of a thing, but making it fun for the kids.
Yeah.
Because I think it's fun for the kids to know that if they're playing clarinet or saxophone or trumpet or trombone, or even guitar for that matter, or drums, that there's cool music out there.
Absolutely.
Where they're not necessarily playing something that was written 300-400 years ago, that they can see themselves doing something kind of more exciting and electric.
And there's music that's different than what you might hear on well, I don't know. The kids are not listening to the FM dial anymore, really, but
no, right.
Different than pop music or hip hop.
And it's interesting when you see those kids where they're kind of that light bulb goes off, where they're like, "Whoa, this is different," and I like that.
Yeah.
Because the human spirit isn't supposed to only like one thing. We're not robots. We're not all the same people. Where you need to expose people to different things, and you can see that there's something else out there, and that's why some kids really like classical music, and some people really like hip hop, and some people really like ska and reggae.
Yeah. So since you've been teaching for 20 plus years, have you noticed any difference in the students as it relates to the music programs or I guess the question is there as much interest, less or more interest by kids taking to music, and is the future looking bright for live music musicianship?
Yeah, honestly, that's a tough question to answer. But one thing that I have noticed, and it's sort of a reflection of sort of music in general, is that I think a lot of kids don't really know what real instruments sound like.
Mm-hmm.
What real drums.
It's scary.
Yeah, they know voices.
Decades now since the hip hop, right? And then reggae, dancehall.
Right. I mean, pretty much, anything in the pop world, you're either listening to electric drums or some kind of like, effect on something, auto tune, everything is overly produced and compressed and all of these things, and there aren't necessarily real drums, real tracks. It's all, a lot of these songs are created on a computer on some kind of a workstation keyboard. Right. Horns aren't real. There's a lot of that stuff. So I really like the fact that we're doing what we're doing, where one of our hashtags sometimes on Instagram and Facebook is hashtag real instruments. Because I think it's important for people to hear what a real drum set sounds like, and what a real trumpet sounds like, and real saxophone sounds like.
No, it's
yeah. So, and that's why I like what I do, is because the kids do get exposed to that, and I'm in a position where I can come up with my own curriculum. I can show them what ska and reggae. I taught a history of my high school teaching career. One of the classes that I taught was music history, and you can kind of teach whatever you want. So you can teach American music history, you can teach world music history. Wow. And I end up teaching them about the history of Jamaican music and how important that is in what music is at this point.
Without reggae, they would not have been hip hop.
Yeah, and it reminds me also
all the dance music. No,
right.
It also reminds me of Brian Wallace. He was a band director also for, I don't know if you knew that about him, but he was a band director up in Tuscadero.
Penny Real, where Joanne and Brandon were students. Yeah.
Yeah, he actually formed a ska band at his school. That was a class.
Yeah, no,
just like jazz band. He had a ska band, and he exposed all these young kids to this music and show them. It's the same kind of concept where as a teacher you can teach them the same thing, or you can come up with your own your own curriculum.
No, well, keep going with that. It's super important. And back to part of that question, how do you balance family, work that pays the bills, and then passion, which is your creative outlet, and maybe someday, right, also pays the bills, but how do you balance that?
Yeah, it's tough. Honestly, this band is, if you could think of a band that would be really, really tough to start and definitely to keep going, this would be it. It's, I created a monster. So it's,
you didn't mention that is the primarily labor of love.
It is. Yeah, I mean, I would not be doing this if I didn't love this music. Right. I would be insane if I didn't like this. So I feel like it's my calling, and so I find time. But it's a full-time job, honestly. Between the social media, the merchandise, the marketing, the booking. For a while there, I was doing most, if not all, the booking. Getting musicians when we were traveling, I have to book the flights and the hotels and the vans.
Like 2 jobs.
getting the musicians and sending them press kits and input lists, and it's kind of this endless thing. I mean,
ultimately, it makes you a good organizer.
What's that?
It makes you an incredible organizer.
Yes, absolutely. It teaches me a lot about patience and hard work and delayed gratification. It's just, for the first 6 years, I was just hemorrhaging money. I mean, it was just like money. It was just flowing out, and we weren't really doing a whole lot, because that first year we played one show. Mm-hmm. We played one show in 2012. That was it. So there's only so much you can do with one show.
Yeah.
But luckily, I think a good 5-6 years in, we started getting that momentum where things started happening. Yeah. But with that comes also more work, and getting the musicians in place, because there's absolutely no way to keep 18 people to rehearse or to play shows. You constantly have to have this revolving chair where
right.
Who's going to be playing third trombone in this, who's playing second trumpet, that's part of the job. So
yeah, wow. Well, Eitan, any closing thoughts before we call it, before we wrap it up here?
Well, I mean, I want to say thank you to you guys for doing this and having this outlet. Because you guys are in your own ways huge, not necessarily from a musician standpoint. You're not musicians, but you are one of the important pillars of this scene, and sort of behind the scenes, a big part of things. So I want to say thank you to you guys for sure. And
Absolutely.
some, if not most, of our best shows, you have brought us on and made everybody super excited. Yes, you are the MC of MCs, and
That is true. Junor Francis.
people are very excited to see you bring us on, and we get 10 times more pumped when you're the one bringing us on. So
Amazingly, I did feel it the other night, 2 Saturdays ago. I said, "Damn, where am I?"
Yeah, no, it's I would love to take you on tour.
All this pent up, I haven't introduced anyone in 2 years.
No, people love you, and you do a lot of great work in the scene, and both of you guys. But I think for closing thoughts, I'm very thankful to the fans. I'm very thankful that I met Mobtown that night, and I was exposed, because my life would be, I don't know what my life would be, honestly, at this point in my life, if I didn't have the ska scene and the friendships that I've made over the years. And I'm addicted to this music, and I hope that I'm doing it justice, and I hope to continue doing what I'm doing, and see where it takes me. So
Yeah. No, those are some great closing thoughts, and
Wonderful.
the 90s ska scene definitely, so memorable, right? And special in many ways. And you were a big part of that, and you continue to be a big part of the music that we love so much. So congratulations, Eitan. Where can fans follow and find out about what you all have going on?
it's really
platforms, right?
Yeah, it's mainly 3 letters. So WST SKA, WST Ska. So if you find us on Instagram, it's at WSTSKA. Our website is www.wstska.com. And so if you look for us there, Facebook, all those places. But we're mainly focusing on Instagram, but a lot of it transfers over to Facebook.
Cool.
But if you're looking to support the band, in terms of getting the records and the CDs and the shirts and all that stuff, which really honestly helps so much in this world where there's so much streaming, and the artists don't really get any kind of money from that buying one shirt is like 10,000 streams or something.
Excellent.
So if you're thinking about supporting the band beyond going to a show, getting the merch there on our website would be something that the band appreciates, and it will go back into the constant funding of this huge band. So
very well said. Yeah, very important to support the bands and the music that you love so much. Junor?
Well, I searched extensively, and it was really hard for me to find information stating precisely and exactly when Western Standard Time, what year was formed. So for the record.
Okay, so November 2011 was when we first got together officially in the studio to record our first album. We had never really had a rehearsal or had any kind of a band meeting or anything like that beyond just the 3 producers, me, Brian Wallace, and Brian Dixon. So that November 2011 is really what I consider the formation of the band, and that's actually that next weekend was when we first opened up our Facebook page, because that was the beginning of, we want to let people know what we're doing, try to get a following, and it took us all that time. August 14th, 2012 was our first show. So it took us that whole time to actually get the show, and then that was our album release. So that was the beginning of the band. So that's why right now, that show, that November 20th show, I felt like that was our 10-year anniversary,
Okay. Yeah.
as well as our album release. So
Indeed.
There we go. Well, I will definitely be at your next SoCal
Yes,
show, whenever that will be.
Well,
So
yeah, it's coming up. It's coming up soon. So yeah, we're doing Morro Bay, San Jose, and we've got some other things in the works in LA and San Diego. So
All right.
Well, Eitan Avineri has been our guest, trumpeter, Los Angeles-based teacher, father, a band leader. You wear so many hats I would need all night to introduce you. But importantly and really significantly, founder of Western Standard Time, the largest, I guess, ska orchestra in the United States. That speaks volume.
yeah, thank you.
Yes, man, speaks volume. You were able to make your idea come to fruition. So really and truly want to thank you. I'm Junor Francis, Eric Kohler.
Yes.
Yeah, he's the brain behind this, Yes, man. So I'm going to urge.
You guys make a good team. So
Yes, man, for many years, right?
Thank you.
Yes.
Yes.
Please
I wouldn't have
follow
it
us.
any other way.
Please follow us at History of LA Ska on Instagram and subscribe to our YouTube channel and join our Facebook group. Please follow me, Junor Francis, at Junor Francis. And the series was produced again by my good friend Eric Kohler for the Rockery Radio. Please follow at Rockery Radio _radio at Instagram for fresh rock, rhythm and soul and Jamaican music inspired daily playlists. Tell us a little bit about the playlist the playlist.
Music that myself and my other partner in crime, Sean Heitkeeper, curate and put together just
Daily
for fun. Yep. Pushing
Talking
that
about-
out there.
man works like a firefly.
Um,
Yes,
But
well,
yes,
congratulations.
Junior, thank you
Yes.
as always for another wonderful show. Eitan, thank you for everything over the years. And we know there's much more to come throughout 2022 for Western Standard Time. Thank you for all of our viewers and listeners and the ongoing support. And until next time, we're signing off. Have a good one. Take care, everyone.
thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.